We've known Omar for a number of years now, since he worked with CRIF at Al-Ittihad Credit Bureau in the UAE also, heading up the marketing team there. There's definitely similarities between the need for credit risk analytics and marketing analytics, particularly in Pakistan, where we see the underbanked marketing analytics becomes very important. So we're very privileged to have Omar with us today to be able to present his view of data analytics, big data from a CRIF perspective. Probably nobody has more data in Pakistan than CRIF. So welcome, Omar Abedin.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Thank you for the intro, Lawrence. So, of all the people in this room, I am the one person that is absolutely from a completely different industry and a completely different background from everyone else in the room. So that makes me feel a little weird to stand here in front of an august group of bankers. Quite honestly, the discussion over the last hour and a half, most of my brain cells have died. I really worked very hard to try and take in everything. I'm sure you guys, second nature, doing half of it, thinking about the other half. For me, it was like, woo! Upar se nikal gaya. However, I did learn to appreciate and understand what data can do for a business when I was working at the credit bureau. So there is a little bit of a correlation. And one thing that I have noticed, I returned to Pakistan about 2 years ago after being outside the country for 20 years. So when I've returned, one of my observations has been that marketing tends to be a very seat of the pants operation in many companies. So it's my gut feel versus your gut feel versus the chairman's gut feel. And guess whose gut feel we go with every single time? Obviously, there's really no need to answer that question. Most of you are smiling because you probably interact with marketers in your various banks and other institutions. And you probably look at them and say, kya bechare log hain, right? Because they have such a tough life. They're going and sponsoring PSL and flying off to Dubai for opening. I think it's a tough life, I understand. So, what is MarTech? This is a relatively new term in the world of technology. So let's talk about that. If I start you off with what the landscape actually looked like in 2011, so this is not that long ago, it's 7 or 8 years ago, which in the world of business and in the world, for example, of the regulator, is a blink of an eye. 8 years goes by like that. This is the number of companies that were offering technological services in the marketing sphere in 2011. Can anyone tell me how many there are? Can you count that fast? I'll tell you, there's 41. That's it, globally, in 2011. Guess what happened in 2012? Little bit more craziness. Right? So in literally the span of 1 year, the number of companies tripled. And then we move forward a couple of years, and it grew again. And you're now seeing a little bit more specialization. So there's color coding. Red, orange, and yellow are different types of services being offered in this space. And then we move forward to 2016, and it's no longer legible. And this is part of the problem and the challenge in the world of marketing technology as well. The sheer number of companies and the sheer level of specialization that is happening is unprecedented. We actually have a gentleman sitting here from one of the digital agencies in Pakistan, Fibonacci. We in Pakistan today are sitting at 2011 in terms of the kind of digital technology that we're implementing. दुनिया में जो चीज़ें 2011 और 12 में हो रही थी वो अब हम जाके पाकिस्तान में implement करने जा रहे हैं और उसमें भी by the way challenges मिलते हैं. I have had the pleasure of meeting very senior bankers, chairman of banks. In my previous life I used to run a media agency, and I have been told to my face that social media is a fad. And I fell off my chair. And I said, sir, but do you realize how many times people are talking about you on Facebook, for example, in the last quarter? He said, well, no, they can't be talking about us on Facebook because we're not on Facebook. I said, just because you're not in a room doesn't mean there isn't a conversation about you happening. And they said, no, that's not possible. So we showed them we had pulled 1 quarter's worth of data from Facebook. It was 253,000 mentions. And the sentiment analysis linked to that was 98% negative. So this gentleman said, I'm going to sue Facebook. And my response was, sir, good luck with that. Let me know how that works out for you. That unfortunately is the level of understanding of what is actually happening in this space at a lot of institutions in Pakistan. And that scares the hell out of me because the rest of the world is on a curve and we are not even acknowledging the existence of the curve. They're at a different point in the curve. So in 2018, this is what the landscape looks like. It's absolutely nuts. And trying to optimize your marketing offerings has become ever more important than before because marketing dollars represent a huge investment on the part of every institution in this room. And so, how do you optimize what you're spending? Is it still seat of the pants? Is it still, hey, this is what we did last year? Let's do that again, because it kind of worked for us. So my answer to this is, well, you've heard this quote, data is the new oil, right? So the question is, what do you do with the oil? Do you export it somewhere else and let them draw the benefits of actually making something of value addition out of it? Do you sell it, by the crude by the barrel, or do you actually have value added stuff happening to the oil where you're actually making the money and not them? So this brings us to what I call the rise of the marketing technologist. And this is already happening in the world. This is not something that I've invented. I'm just sharing it with you because I'm not seeing a lot of this in Pakistan. There's a lot of talk around this in marketing circles, but I'm not seeing a lot of it in action. The premise is that marketing is as measurable an activity as anything else and must deliver an ROI. So this is an extreme challenge in a market like Pakistan where data is hard to come by. And yet, you can still measure everything. And I'm here to tell you that if one of your marketing teams comes back and says, hey, but I cannot measure what I'm spending on television, so I must spend 300 million rupees because I spent 250 last year, so this year there's been inflation, so I'm going to spend 300 million because I must. So the answer is, well, why must you spend 300 million? And are you spending it in the right channels? And are you asking the right questions? So, a marketing technologist is someone that helps to bridge the gap between the consumer experience and marketing operations using data. And the question is that person always going to get it right? No. But at least with data, you know what you're measuring. And you can course correct and iterate and do it again. And you can A/B test. And you can put so many things out there. And the tools are available. Like I said, there's a plethora of tools. There's no shortage of actual tools to use. The question is, will we use them and how will we use them? So the question that, for example, Kareem started out to solve for about 6 years ago was, what problem are we trying to solve? And so the problem that Kareem chose to solve was transportation as its first step. So the vision and mission of Kareem revolved around simplifying people's lives. The first route we took was ride-hailing because we saw that there was an actual transportation challenge. There are people who cannot get from point A to point B. They are dependent on infrastructural challenges. They're waiting for father, brother, mother, sister, somebody to come home and take them from point A to point B. And Kareem takes that away from them. And that problem gets resolved. But then it's not only about ride-hailing. So Kareem, I don't know if you're aware, Kareem has launched a wallet called Kareem Pay. It's a proper ledger-based system. It will become quite active in the coming few months, years. We have launched, we're launching Kareem deliveries, which is called Kareem Now, leveraging off of the same ride-hailing platform. So if you want something picked up and delivered, I do it all the time. You know, I sometimes forget my phone charger. I've even forgotten my phone, which is, you know, a big problem. So you book a Kareem bike, he goes to wherever you ask him to go to, the ride starts from there, he picks up whatever the heck it is, a charger, and he delivers it to wherever you are. And it costs you 50 rupees. And it takes 10 minutes. So if you start actually looking at the kinds of marketing problems that exist today, I'm not going to try and explain this eye chart to you, but I will break it down for you. So are you trying to solve a collaboration problem across your teams? Are you trying to solve for data, centralization, analytics, automation, customer experience, retention? What is it exactly that you're trying to solve for? And if you know that, then you can actually set up data to go about solving that. So what does tech mean at Kareem? We're a tech company. We're actually not a ride-hailing company. We are a tech platform. We are a marketplace that matches supply and demand, and that's about it. So over the last 5 years, we have seen ridiculous growth. That little black line there is where we thought we would be in 2017. So you can imagine 2018 ka graph I'm not allowed to share with you yet because you might have heard we're in the process of being acquired. So there are regulatory concerns, but I assure you the 2018 number is like on the next floor of the building. And there's a reason that Uber is willing to invest $3.1 billion to buy us. It's the single biggest acquisition in this region. So now, what we're doing is we're taking different inputs, and as Lawrence mentioned, we have a lot of data. The challenge is not the data itself. The challenge is what to do with the data because there's so much of it. So we're looking at external factors, we're looking at revenue, we're looking at demand and supply, obviously, because that's a critical driver of our business. And then we're trying to automate through the use of logic and predictive modeling. We're trying to come up with a model that helps us to grow efficiently. So the problem I was trying to solve for was, if I have $1 to spend or invest in marketing, what is the one thing that I should do that will maximize the return on my investment? And once I've maximized that, then I will spend $1 somewhere else. And once I've maximized that. So what does this look like? Because it sounds great, but this is what it roughly looks like, and please don't bother taking a picture of this because the numbers are all masked and obviously doesn't really have any actual value other than academics. So on the left, you'll see marketplace metrics, and on the right, you'll see demand metrics. So we are actually trying to match the supply and the demand for every single car type in every single city on an hourly basis. So imagine the sheer volume of data that we are crunching to be able to come up with a definition of what does demand and what does supply look like. So if you watch, literally on an hourly basis, the metrics are changing. And obviously it's impossible for me to actually direct a demand campaign at an hourly change. But if I'm looking at it on a weekly basis, I have a very clear indicator, for example, that we have a demand issue in Karachi on bikes, which means that my supply on bikes is quite extravagant. I need demand. And just on that note today, where's Lawrence? Lawrence freaked me out. We had gone to a meeting this morning, and he came downstairs, and before I could even get downstairs, he called a Kareem bike and took off by himself. No helmet, backpack, Gora on a bike in Karachi. And apparently he gave a lot of people heart attacks on the way here because everyone's like, "Oh, isko kya ho gaya? Ye kahan se aaya? Kahan ja raha hai? Kuch chakkar hai, camera kidhar hai?" And so he wanted to see for himself what Kareem bike could do, and he was here. We were only 15 minutes away from the hotel. He was here in like 6 minutes. It took us 15 minutes. So he experienced Kareem bike for himself. So now, when you start looking at this kind of data, at this granularity and this level of detail, you come up with interesting opportunities. And this is where the role of the marketing technologist comes in, because there is a left brain function involved in the data and analytics. But then there is a right brain function involved in terms of how creatively you decide to address the challenge. So the first case that I'm going to talk to you about is something called the runaway bride. And this is something that, well, let's just say we learned a lot. So the background was we have this amazing service called Bike. It's the absolute cheapest, fastest, not necessarily safest, but cheapest, fastest way of getting from point A to point B. And you should have a strong heart and दिल गुर्दा जो कहते हैं कि क्योंकि बाइक पे अक्सर उनके पास हेलमेट नहीं होता है आपके लिए, और अगर आप उनसे मांगेंगे तो वो आपको मना कर देंगे कि नहीं सर आपके पास अपना हेलमेट होना चाहिए. हालांकि हम अपनी तरफ से देते हैं हेलमेट, बट वो अक्सर इधर उधर हो जाता है. Sometimes they sell it or they give it away or whatever. So the data points, the main data points were that only 40% of our captain's time was being utilized. So we realized that we needed to get more demand for bikes. So the challenge was to build what we call FTUs, first-time users, and increase the trips per user of existing customers by improving the awareness and recall for Kareem bike. So research told us that people were not aware that we had a Kareem bike service. They were aware of other brands in the market that had bikes, but not Kareem bike. In fact, they thought that there is another brand that sounds somewhat like bike. I won't say their name, but they thought that that bike company was actually owned by Kareem, which is not the case. So we came up with a series of billboards. Baji ka suit barbaad ho gaya to Kareem bike bulao. So basically, this is a tailor who's ruined the clothes for the lady of the house, and she's about to kill him. So he calls a Kareem bike and escapes. This is a boy who's about to get slapped by his mom, and he decides to use Kareem bike to flee. All the people you're seeing in these billboards, by the way, are Kareem employees. So we really maximize the return on our investment. We don't pay them anything for actually being in the ads. This boy is actually part of the creative team, and so I'm sure all of you can read this. But basically, if you want to catch a thief who's escaping from you, please call a Kareem bike and you can run him down. And this one was not our proudest moment. If you really have to go to the bathroom, call a Kareem bike. Strangely enough, no one really minded this stuff. It was this one that caught the nation's attention, and we were completely caught off guard. Had no expectation that what was obviously meant to be a joke was taken as an attack on the nation's cultural values.
On the social media.
Especially on social media. So it was a storm in a very large teacup. This billboard went up and down in 24 hours. 24 hours, literally, and it only went up in Lahore. It was also up, by the way, in Faisalabad and Multan. No one in Faisalabad or Multan had any problems, but Lahore, it just, I don't know, we offended the sensibilities of a large number of people, and for which I'm deeply sorry. That was not the intention. Having said all that, Lahore trips went up 14%. Faisalabad trips went up 10%, Multan went up 10%. Even Karachi went up, even though we had no billboards in Karachi. The amazing thing is that it's not that they went up 14% and then came back down again. So they grew 14%, then 15%, then 10% in the last 4 weeks. So, and by the way, this was in the same month as, in the same week as 23rd March, where traditionally rides would fall through the floor. And then there was massive rain in Punjab, so technically these numbers are very, they've been affected. So these numbers could have been 30-40% if, for example, it had not rained. If you look on social, we gained almost 2,000 followers in one day. So it's not that, people were upset, But generally, the number of interactions we had increased, the engagement we had increased, and the number of followers shot through the roof. So if you look at Kareem Global, actually Kareem Pakistan, we are only one country out of 15 within which Kareem operates. But Kareem Pakistan represents 60% of all interactions on social media because, like I said, बहुत वेले लोग हैं, बहुत time है. And there are people who actually wake up in the morning and tweet at Kareem Pak. Hey Kareem Pak, how you doing? I am not joking. This is the kind of brand that we have. People engage with us, and sometimes the question is, hey Kareem Pak, do you have a promo code for me today? Please, I'm feeling poor. You can go on our Twitter feed and see if I'm exaggerating. You will see memes of people, buy a promo code today. What the heck? We're a company, man, don't talk to us. So we talk to them like that, right? So they talk to us like a friend. And so I think we are the only company in Pakistan that has this kind of a social media presence and this kind of a social media following because of the way the brand has been structured over the last 4 years. Just for fun, I thought I'd show you guys a couple of ads that we've launched. We obviously did not launch a leave your own wedding kind of an ad, thankfully. But I will show you a couple of others that we made that were somewhat they were just as unrealistic, but somewhat less offensive. There we go.
डाकुओं को पकड़ना हो तो करीम बाइक करो. बिस्कुट कौन देगा?
So the funny thing is, even when I posted this on LinkedIn, people were saying, "यार ये कोई realistic situation तो है नहीं." Like, come on, guys, for the love of God. Like, really, you think people are going to call? Like, honestly, sometimes I'm left speechless at how literal some people can be. And so I've actually started caveating on my LinkedIn post. If you have misplaced your sense of humor, please don't bother to comment. Because it's a joke. For God's sake, any rational person in Pakistan or anywhere will say, yaar, it's a joke. But लोग उसमें भी जो है ना वो बस कुछ चाहिए होता है.
अम्मी के छित्तर से बचना हो तो करीम बाइक करो.
इसमें भी मुझे कमेंट्स मिले कि यार आप क्या सिखा रहे हैं हमारे नौजवान कौम को. I'm like, really, oh my God. And this one is, well, you can see what kind of comments probably.
आखिरी कैच ड्रॉप हो जाए तो करीम बाइक करो.
So I'm not even going to tell you what kind of comments I got because obviously people didn't really. Anyway, moving on. Lots of learnings for us from there. So like I said, the data and the analytics drove us to a particular problem. The way we chose to resolve it, because of one particular billboard design, kind of blew up in our faces. At the same time, we did achieve the results that we were expecting to do. And in fact, the GMs of Karachi and North called me and said, hey, can we put that billboard up here? And I said, bhai, maaf kar do yaar, main mulk chhod ke bhagna padega. So, case number 2, what we call the identity crisis. And this is an interesting one. So for the longest time, we thought that our rickshaw customers were predominantly men. The reason for this is that we don't collect gender information on the CRIF app. It's not mandatory. And, we allow people to skip that field if they want to skip the field. So we didn't really know who our rickshaw customers were. So we did a pretty big research. We talked to existing and churned rickshaw customers, and we obviously wanted to find out their demographics, but also their psychographics and their attitudes and beliefs as to why they actually use rickshaw. Other than the demographics, we wanted to basically improve our targeting, because we were showing men in all of our rickshaw ads, and rickshaw sales were not increasing. Rickshaw trips were not growing. So we found 71% of rickshaw users are women, which was a bit of an eye-opener for us. And we found that most of them are actually working women who are using rickshaw to commute to work, because rickshaw is perceived as a safer mode of transport because it's open. So khuda na khasta, if something bad happens, you can jump out. It's not exactly a great idea if you're on a Shara Faisal, but it's the perception is कि खुला है, तो इसमें कोई ताला lock नहीं कर सकता है. Nobody can physically restrain you in a rickshaw. Quite honestly, I don't know why anyone would even try, because most women that I've met in Pakistan are extremely independent, extremely strong-willed, especially people who are working for a living and who need to get to work, because they are the main breadwinners of the house. So we as men don't even realize how challenging it is for women who are the sole breadwinners of the house, for whatever reason. And so that's the role that the rickshaw is playing in their lives. So this was completely eye-opening for us. Pick and drop to the office was the #1 use case. Visiting friends and relatives, etc. And the #1 reason was that it's economical. It's cheaper than even a Go Mini. And obviously you don't get too many women hitching rides on Kareem bike. That's a 98%, 99% male phenomenon. But do you know, for example, that we have more than 20 female captains on motorcycles in Karachi? I was kind of shocked. The first time I saw one, I was like, wait, that's a Kareem bike. Oh, that's a lady. Like, it was mind-blowing. And she was riding like a professional, weaving through traffic and just like every other biker in Karachi. So we completely changed our communication strategy. We started obviously talking to women, and we started pushing safety, reliability, and convenience. And the results were pretty outstanding. The third case study is what we call the lost demand paradox. This is an interesting one. In one particular car type, I won't get into which one, we had flat trips for about 5 or 6 weeks. No growth, which is very unusual for Kareem. We are a company that grows week on week. So if you look at our numbers from, let's say, this period 3 years ago, it's a multiple of 10x to where we are today. So if we don't grow 1.5 to 2, 3, 4% every week, everyone says there's something wrong. The system is broken. So when you start flatlining like this, it's an immediate red flag. So when we started digging into it, we realized that there are a lot of demand sessions being opened, but captains are not accepting those requests for rides. So if you look at the missed sessions, which is the black dotted line, it started skyrocketing about 6 weeks ago. So we dug even deeper, and when we looked at it by geography, we realized that there are 3 main areas that this demand gap is coming in: Defense, PCHS, and Sadr. So then we went further into the problem, and then we realized that actually missed bookings were spiking during 2 particular times of the day. And then we realized that we had to incentivize those captains to be online during those peak demand hours. So what was the action that we took? We basically incentivized our captains to be available during that time. So supply in Careem is a critical part of our component. So we have various marketing operational levers that we can pull to make sure that people actually come online when we need them. And so the bonuses, guarantees, linked to number of trips, and so on and so forth. And it was a straightforward fix, but again, required a fair level of analysis and understanding of data to be able to crack it and get buy-in from the respective operations teams. So the result was that our missed sessions went down tremendously because we were able to better match supply and demand. So just some closing thoughts. Not all data is created equal, right? So first party data is obviously the best. We have an amazingly huge collection of first party data that quite honestly we're still figuring out how to optimize. But in Pakistan there's a fair amount of second and third party data that is available as well. And I think Lawrence is going to talk to you a little bit about a tool that they're about to launch in Pakistan. And at the risk of stealing Lawrence's thunder, they're going to be creating in fact, one of the earlier speakers, Osman, also referenced a data lake. So creating a data management platform that allows you to target customers across multiple identifiers. And I will stop there. So on the day that Careem launched, July 22, 2012, the founders made a list of multiple features that had to be in our MVP, which is the minimum viable product. One of those was a feature that allowed corporate managers to manage other people's rides. Till this date, that has not been done because there are so many other priorities that we have as a company that particular feature has not been added in the last 6.5, almost 7 years. The reason for that is that the way that Careem scales operations is very different than the way most companies scale operations. So most companies follow the above model, which is trying to build things one piece at a time. And what we do is we build an MVP and then we iterate it continuously. So we get to whatever percent is the minimum acceptable product by customers, and we launch with that. And then we iterate, and then we iterate, and then we iterate. And so the current version of the app is, I have no idea what the version is. It has changed so many times that it's actually not recognizable if you look at the app from 6 years ago. It's completely not recognizable. I would like you to leave you with this thought. All of you know this country, Sweden, right? It's a tiny little country. It has a population of nothing. You could put the whole of Sweden in Nazmabad and it would vanish and never emerge, ever. This little country has created brands worth close to $40 billion. You know all of these brands. In fact, there's 30 more big brands on this list, right? Now compare this to Pakistan with a population that is just 20 times bigger than Sweden, and growing by the minute is probably 208, 209, 210, 211 million. We have created 2 brands of any value. You all know about the Engro acquisition, Engro Foods, from a few years ago when RFC acquired them. And then of course you know about Careem, and the reason I put Careem in there is because Careem Tech was built in Pakistan. Until 2017, Careem had no engineers outside Pakistan. So it's an entirely Pakistani tech operation. The first lines of code were written by one of my colleagues. His name is Tafsir, and you know, we have coffee every day. This is a story that has not been told. The fact that Pakistan now is finally being seen as a creator of amazing technology, global technology, that a company like Uber from Silicon Valley comes in and spends $3 billion to acquire a company grown in Pakistan. So my question to all of you, because all of you are decision makers, all of you are regulators, all of you are absolutely in the driving seat when it comes to this. When is the next $3 billion brand going to come out of Pakistan? Or the next $5 billion brand, or the next $10 billion brand? Thank you very much. If there are any questions, we can have them now, or we can discuss them over chat. And please don't ask me what prompted me to create the Shadi Wala ad. Please don't do that. I'm begging you right now, please don't do that. Ji sir.
I would like to ask about Uber's acquisition of Leap. Are they going to acquire only Pakistan's operations or Middle East operations?
So they have, the proposal is to acquire Careem in all 15 countries in which we operate.
Okay, all operations.
And that's why this transaction is going to take about 1 year to complete, because we have to get approvals in 15 markets.
Okay, I hope the name will also be changed.
No, sir. The companies will be run completely independently.
Okay.
Careem will exist as a standalone entity that is a wholly owned subsidiary of Uber Technologies. But the two companies will exist and operate in complete independence.
These $3 billion are coming in Pakistan or in the 60? Again, Shadi Wala ad.
सर ये सवाल कहाँ पैसे जा रहे और आ रहे इसका मुझे नहीं पता. This is way above my pay grade. Please don't get. नहीं सर, ऐसा कुछ नहीं. Any other thoughts, questions? जी.
So one is how many subscriber or the customer per se are with Careem, and the second is Careem monetizing the data in some way?
We are only monetizing in as far as we are using the data ourselves. We do not sell data. We don't share data. There's a lot of, like, we're hyper critical and vigilant about this. Are you asking about Pakistani customers or globally?
Yeah, you can tell me both. But Pakistani, yes, that is more.
So Pakistanis, the number has crossed 300,000 people. Sorry, we have more than 300,000 captains in Pakistan. So 3 लाख लोगों को आमदनी मिल रही है इस जरिए से सिर्फ पाकिस्तान में. Across the region, it's 1 million. In Pakistan, the number of app downloads we have has crossed 20 million. So we have a lot of data.
So 300K is captains for 20 million.
Well, obviously those 20 million are not using Careem every day. ठीक है जी. Thank you very much, everyone.